For more on this, I'm now joined by DeBar, radio host and journalist of CPR News, joining us from Ossining, New York. Very good to have you in the program, Don. What do you think about the significance of this news?
It's just one additional piece of evidence about the nature of the Israeli regime and about the nature of the United States government and its foreign policy. You've had, as you just mentioned from the report that was issued today, another report in a long line of them going back to the 1940s, matter of fact, dealing with the specific issue of scraping the land of the Palestinians and their homes and any reminder that they live there, and handing it over to what they euphemistically call settlers, like they call the people that murdered the inhabitants of North and South America a few hundred years ago. Back in July, when this ongoing project was in operation, the International Court of Justice said stop. And yet, they're accelerating it now. The United States doesn't even report this in the media here. And when they do, it's looking at the International Court of Justice as some sort of anachronism rather than, a court of the United Nations. And nothing is done. You could imagine if Hugo Chavez came back and led Venezuela into the disputed portions of land with Guyana where the oil is, and there were an order from the ICJ to stop, and he flipped it the bird. The U.S. would have the Army, Air Force, Marines, and Diver Dan, at the ready to topple the government and send Hugo Chavez back to wherever he is now. This is, behavior that is acceptable only from Israel and the United States. The entire world knows this. If you look at the votes on anything that Israel does that's offensive to the UN Charter, which is much of the things that flow from its existence, frankly, and look at the votes, even the countries that fully support Israel have to either abstain or not vote because their own people would be so offended because their own people know what the hell is going on there. They lie about what their role is and hide behind these votes, but no one on this planet outside of Ukraine and Washington stands up and supports this genocide because the whole world knows it's genocide. They're stealing, and we're getting a flavor in Syria, if we needed it, about the extent of the claim that they intend to prosecute to steal the land and drive the people out. That's been going on in Syria now since 2011. Millions of people have already been driven out by violence that was perpetrated in large part by Israel and in major part by the United States, all towards the same project.
Now, Don, regarding the work permits being revoked, we know that, like a lot of Palestinians, are parts of the workforce in the occupied territories, and this will also put economic pressure on the Israeli economy. So how do you think this is going to backfire?
This is a central contradiction that exists when you exploit people for their labor and then have to enforce that exploitation because their natural response is to try to shake it off. On the one hand, we own you and the products of your labor, and therefore we want to maintain you at least in a way where you can continue to work for us. We don't want to give you fancy stuff, but enough food so you show up for work tomorrow. On the other hand, if you show up for work to organize tomorrow, we have to kill you or render you inert or safe in one way or another. That's really an oppressor's choice that they have to deal with, and the people who are oppressed have to decide whether they want to continue their oppression and shut up and go back to work, or stand up. And from time to time, inevitably, by the way, because the conditions require broader and deeper exploitation under these systems, at some point in time it becomes intolerable, and the people stand up and they don't give a damn what happens. And we're reaching that point in a number of places in the world, particularly in this region, but in a lot of other places too.
Very interesting to get your perspective on the matter. Don, DeBar radio host and journalist of CPR News, joining us from Ossining, New York.